Imagine this scenario with me. You didn't grow up watching A Galaxy Far, Far Away like a lot of kids. Instead, you spent most days reading your mom's People magazine and US Weekly. What does that lead to as an adult? Well, you become TMZ reporters and street interviewers like Adam Glynn and Dax Holt. This conversation is basically off the rails from the very beginning, but you're going to love it. This is Tatooine Sons.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody listen to that.
Welcome to Tatooine Sons, the only fan podcast to name an official Star Wars creature and to be endorsed by the writer and the director of The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of this generation, that there is a story. It is written on our souls, and that these myths speak to that story. And that is why I am honored to be joined this week by Adam Glynn and Dax Holt. Adam grew up in New Jersey, just outside of New York City. Like many college graduates, he had difficulty finding a job, so comedy found him. He became a staple in the New York comedy scene, performing at clubs all over the city and opening for headliners around the country. And in 2010, Adam was approached by a rising entertainment news outlet looking to expand into New York. So what he ended up doing was changing the paparazzi scene into what's known now as street journalism. He interviewed the biggest politicians, musicians, actors, athletes, social influencers in the world. He's interviewed Oprah Winfrey, Donald Trump, Jimmy Carter, Tony Robbins, Tim Ferris, Floyd Mayweather. I can't talk today. Conor McGregor, Shaquille O'Neal, David Letterman, Beyoncé, Stevie Wonder, Kevin Hart, Derek Jeter, Usher, Rihanna, Ronda Rousey, and a lot more. Beyonce even put him in one of her music videos for that hit song XO. Shaquille O'Neal is known for picking him up wherever he is, putting him in his car and making him hang out with him for a day. And he's widely cited for his journalism in the 2014 Ray Rice news conference with NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, which made Yale Public Library's number 4 quote of 2014. Well, at least he didn't make the number 2 worst thing to happen on the internet in 2018 like we did. But anyway, joining Adam is his co-host on Hollywood Raw podcast, Dax Holt. During his 11 years at TMZ, Dax quickly became one of the most recognizable faces at Warner Brothers' hit entertainment show. And while with the organization, he earned 2 Emmy nominations for his work, became their top on-air correspondent. Dax has appeared on countless other programs such as Access Hollywood, The Talk, Dish Nation, and most notably Live with Kelly. His engaging personality led him to become actually a finalist during the wildly publicized national search to co-host alongside Kelly Ripa. And Dax's wild sense of humor, contagious laugh, and his presence on both the internet and television set him apart from others. Neither of these guys, and this is the bad news, I guess, neither of these guys are super Star Wars fans. But that doesn't mean that they don't have opinions on Star Wars. Here you go.
Ooh, I don't even think I've seen all of them.
I don't think I've seen, like, I like the ones that maybe some people maybe don't really like. Like, I like Darth Maul. Like, I like those type characters.
Okay.
I don't know. Was there an era of Star Wars that people just fell off a little bit, where people thought maybe it jumped the shark?
You know what? This is the $1 million question in Star Wars fandom. So the short answer to that is whenever a new era of Star Wars comes out, everyone that was a part of the previous era hates the new era. So original trilogy fans, guys like me that grew up with, Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, we were, the OT super fans. When the prequels came out, Phantom Menace, the Darth Maul era that you're talking about, these were the worst movies that ever made. There was actually a movement out called that talked about George Lucas ruined our childhood and all of this kind of stuff. And then this happened all over again when the Disney era took over. And everybody that loved the prequels, all the kids that grew up with Darth Maul, they think that the sequel trilogy, this stuff with Rey and all the stuff that just came out the last few years, is the worst thing that's ever happened to Star Wars. And they absolutely want to destroy Disney as a result of it. So when you think of Star Wars, Adam, you think of Darth Maul and the prequel era?
I'm just saying, like, I knew I would get flack for that, for saying I liked the Phantom Menace stuff. However, I don't think there's a part where I actually did like that one. I know a lot of people did not like it. However, I was at Disney not too long ago, and the new Disney exhibit of Star Wars is incredible. Like, I was in Disney World, not Disneyland, and it's unbelievable. I think it's such a cool experience.
Galaxy's Edge.
Dude, it is so insane. It's amazing. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Like, it's more than a ride. It's like an experience.
It's the most immersive thing that you can possibly imagine in a theme park with that. So what about you, Dax? When you think of Star Wars, what do you think of?
I mean, I think old school Star Wars, to be completely honest with you, because that was when I watched all the old ones a long time ago. And then when they came back, I just didn't get back into them as much. And everyone around me was really into them. It just wasn't my thing. I think that's when I gravitated more towards like The Matrix and then Marvel movies. And so that's what I started watching more than like really getting back into Star Wars for me. So when I think of Star Wars, I'm thinking Jabba the Hutt. I'm thinking, like old school stuff. And I know that's kind of weird, but that's what goes through my mind.
No, you're an original trilogy purist. Is the way it goes for. So what was your growing up? That age 10 to 14 period. What was your fandom? What did you just completely lose your mind of and obsess about when it comes to, the things that are in pop culture, TV, movies, wrestling, all those different kinds of things that are out there? We'll start with you, Dax.
Ooh, I've always been into just pop culture in general, which is really weird. I think Adam and I have talked about this a lot, but I grew up with a single mother who always had an Us Weekly that she would bring home from work. She worked at a dental office, so she'd bring home the magazines. And so that was kind of what I would do, is just start flipping through magazines. And so I've always just enjoyed pop culture in general. And so I was big into the big award shows. And I don't know, I didn't really get into a lot of the movie stuff. And I don't know if that was just because, I was at home watching TV more than going to see the movies. But I just got this really weird encyclopedia knowledge of just celebrity news over the years. And I can't explain it. It didn't happen with sports. It just happened with entertainment in general. And you made a career out of it. I made a career out of it. Yeah, I was telling Adam that, I tried to get a job at ESPN, and after a couple of weeks, I was like, what am I doing here? I don't know any of these people. Why am I trying to work in sports? And then obviously TMZ and all that other stuff came out that it was a good fit for me. That's awesome. What about you, Adam? What was your fandom as a 10 to 14 year old?
Yeah, like Dax, I grew up with a mother who subscribed to People and Star magazines. So every time I near a toilet was a Star magazine, I was always reading it when I was using the restroom. And then, I love pro wrestling. I don't know, something about the old school Hulk Hogan to that whole era from Hulk Hogan to Stone Cold Steve Austin was something that the Attitude Era in the WWF, WWE is something that I just loved. And then I just loved, I grew up, I'm a kid of the 90s. I just loved 90s movies and TV. I loved, old school 90s movies, from movies like Speed, which was 93, 94, to movies like Three Ninjas, which was a random so I still one of my hobbies is kind of following 90s again, because I'm a kid of the 90s, I followed 90s Instagram accounts, and I just love seeing stuff from the 90s. I just bought a vintage Three Ninjas t-shirt and a vintage Surf Ninjas t-shirt, which these movies from the 90s where Surf Ninjas actually bombed, Three Ninjas actually did well. But I still, I'm obsessed with those type of movies. Movies like Heavyweights, which was a Judd Apatow movie, which I thought was ahead of their time. I was like, man, I can't believe this movie is actually a Disney movie, but was such a great movie. Movies like Mighty Ducks. So I just loved that era of Disney movies that were just kind of like fun, but push the edge just a little bit. I think that was a big part of my childhood, which I still obsess about today. I still love collecting memorabilia or vintage t-shirts from that era. It's a hobby of mine, and it's just great.
You know what? I can think of one. Saturday Night Live. I was the biggest Saturday Night Live fan when I was younger, obsessed over it. And, you know, it's been fun because we just had Chris Kattan on the other day on our podcast. And it was like that to me, you could have there's no chance you could tell me, oh, you're going to interview this guy one day. I would have never believed you because that was like a superstar for me at that time. So I would say Saturday Night Live was my thing, my jam.
Yeah. Like Dax, I agree with you. Saturday Night Live to me was just like that, you know, I think I was too young, but that's what made it so exciting to watch some of the jokes that they were doing. I mean, my era of SNL was Chris Kattan, Will Ferrell, Adam Sandler, David Spade, Chris Rock, that era.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just pushing the edge just a little bit. Saturday Night Live to me, and then also MTV. MTV, you know, again, it's a different MTV now than it was again in the early 90s, where I used to love music videos. I loved MTV TV shows. I loved The Grind. I loved Spring Break on MTV.
God, I wanted to be Carson Daly.
Content. I wanted to be Carson Daly. I wanted to be Pauly Shore, which I don't know some of these kids remember him, but Pauly Shore to me was like huge. And I loved his movie.
Listen, definitely know Pauly. So.
Oh yeah.
The Weasel. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was that's stuff I love.
What is it about those 90s movies, Adam, you know, that era that you were talking to those, you know, I honestly, this will be the first time that Three Ninjas has been referenced in the history of Tatooine Sons. What is it about that era? You know, and Mighty Ducks and Heavyweights and all those are kind of in that same genre, even to some extent. What is it about those that you just absolutely love and you keep going back to?
I think it was just you don't see comedies anymore in movie theaters. You know, we're now at a different time where a lot of the comedies you see now are on streaming sites. Unfortunately, you know, comedies, it's hard for them to last in theaters or people to go see comedy in movie theaters. So at that time, it was a really exciting time to go to a movie theater and see a film. And you know, the movies like Heavyweights, like I said, Mighty Ducks, the ninja movies to action movies. Like there was a movie called Only the Strong, which was, you know, was a kind of random capoeira Brazilian karate movie. It was something just exciting where the soundtrack was fun. The trailer to see the movie, it was a full 360 experience that really made it amazing. And then when it goes to the comedies, I felt like, especially for Disney, they pushed the edge just a little bit. Like I was seeing Disney movies, their animated movies are sort of like, they're very deep where like sometimes I'm like, man, I can't believe these movies for a kid. But also, in my opinion, Disney movies in the early 90s, comedy-wise, I felt like pushed the limits where some of the jokes were like, I can't believe they're getting away with this, and they're still going under the Disney umbrella.
That's cool. So Dax, you mentioned earlier to me as we were kind of starting the conversation that while Star Wars isn't your thing, Marvel is a big thing for you right now. So what are your thoughts? Have you been following Moon Knight? Have you been watching that yet?
I haven't got onto Moon Knight. We're finishing up what's the Inventing Anna right now on Netflix, my wife and I. Moon Knight will be the next thing we get into. We're trying to work our way through, you know, a lot of the big series, either on Netflix, Disney Plus, whatever it is, and we just try to like get through stuff. So that will be the next one. It took a lot of convincing. Finally got my wife on board to start watching all of the Marvel movies in order because it just was never her thing. So I'm like, babe, just trust me. The stuff is awesome. And so, you know, we started way back with Captain America and then Captain Marvel, and so it's just like working our way through. So she's really enjoying it. But I've watched all the other ones by myself, but Moon Knight I've heard is pretty awesome, and I think she will enjoy it. Yeah, I haven't got to it yet, though.
It's different. It's definitely different. Okay, so of the Disney's, the Disney Plus series, WandaVision, Loki, Captain America, or excuse me, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, those types of things. Which one was the one that you just like absolutely loved the most, and why?
I mean, I feel like WandaVision was good. It took numerous episodes to really get into why that one was good, but I feel like once you're like episode 5 and you're like, okay, this show is really good. I think Falcon Winter Soldier, I might go with that one. I really like that one. That was a good one from kind of start to finish. Shoot, that's a toss up. Let's go Winter Soldier. I like that one better, I think, than WandaVision.
Awesome. Adam, are you into any of the Marvel stuff?
I get confused by some of them. I liked more of like I'm more of a Batman guy. Okay. So I enjoyed more Batman and I like the Spider-Man movies. As far as all the Marvel stuff, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm very confused by them, but I am trying to get into it more and more. It's more of like, I'm in New York, so it's cold, so we don't have that much to do during the winter. So I've been trying to get into it when the weather is not so great. Here's the thing. I grew up more of a wrestling fan. I was a pro wrestling fan. I was a WWE, WWF, ECW, WCW. That was really big for me. I don't know, something about growing up in Jersey with all these meatheads. It's something about the wrestlers, the gimmicks. To me, it was amazing. So I loved Hulk Hogan. I loved the Stone Cold Steve Austin, the Attitude Era. Then I got into a thing called ECW, which was a little bit where they really pushed the limits, and it made you think if it was real. And then I even started to do like fantasy wrestling, where we'd do newsletters where we'd wonder who would win. And it's funny, I actually, one of my best friends from high school, when we graduated high school, he wanted to be a professional WWE wrestler. He wound up becoming a WWE wrestler. He went to a training camp, got signed by the WWE. Then he's the one who got me my job at TMZ. And then my best friend in college also so happened to be a wrestler, a professional wrestler, and he got signed by the WWE as well. So it's just funny how I got connected into wrestling. And then from doing my job as a street journalist, as I run around doing celebrity interviews on the street, I got to know John Cena, the Randy Orton. I just interviewed Randy Orton recently, and I got to be part of that world. I've gotten to know Stephanie McMahon, which is sort of surreal because I'm a stockholder in the WWE. So it's fun to have that in with the wrestling world and sort of know what's going on. It means something
when you're a stockholder of the WWE. It's not like the Packers where it's pointless. It means something to be a stockholder of WWE. So that's cool.
Exactly. I'm not like just asking questions. I'm asking questions like, hey, should I throw some more money in, or should I start to take some money out of them? But it's just cool. I grew up when wrestling to me was more fun. I think it's changed a little bit in the last 10 years since the Attitude Era. But at some point, wrestling was, the Monday night battles, the Monday night when Monday Night Raw was going against WCW Monday Night Nitro. That to me was like a Super Bowl every Monday night. I just loved seeing what each network was going to do to one up each other.
We don't talk about wrestling really at all on Tatooine Sons, but for me, wrestling was kind of a guilty pleasure growing up. I remember going to my friend's house to watch WWF when Hulk Hogan body slammed Andre the Giant at WrestleMania, and we'd set up our own wrestling rings in the backyard and beat the living daylights out of each other with our own wrestling associations and characters and heroes and villains and all that stuff. It was an absolute blast. We'll get back to our conversation with Dax and Adam in just a minute, but before we do that, here is your chance to change the story that you are telling yourself by joining the fellowship that we've initiated around the Hero's Journal. We've begun a quest to better ourselves and our lives through this amazing tool that uses the power of stories and scientifically proven productivity techniques to help fans like us take control of the story that we tell ourselves. Remember, changing our story takes small changes over a period of time. It's not giant moments of inspiration. It's the small, consistent actions. And the Hero's Journal provides a fun and powerful way of taking those steps. You can join our fellowship for free. Just head on over to theheroesjournal.co/pages/Tatooine Sons to download a digital version of the first act of the Hero's Journal and begin your quest today. All right, Adam mentioned that he was also a very big Batman fans. So, of course, I had to ask Adam and Dax what they thought about the Batman. Here's what they had to say.
I enjoyed it. It was a little 30 minutes too long. I didn't need that much, which is weird, as some people who might want to stay out of the house a little bit more. I thought it was 30 minutes too long. I enjoyed it. It was a different approach to it. It was very unique. I thought Robert Pattinson was great. I didn't, going into it, I didn't have high hopes, but I walked out of it satisfied, if that makes sense. I'm excited to see what comes from it, but I walked out of it satisfied. I didn't, but I went into it not expecting much.
What was it? What was it that was satisfying to you about that movie?
I just like the approach. I thought it was a different way of doing a Batman movie. I thought it was very unique. I think Robert Pattinson, again, I kind of judged him on his previous roles, and I was like, all right, I know that this guy was in Twilight. How is this guy who played a werewolf or vampire, whatever he was in Twilight, going to pull off to be Batman? And then I saw it. It was weird, but I understood it. I understood why they casted him. And again, my only critique, it was about 30, maybe 40 minutes, a little too long. There's some scenes that I just didn't feel like were necessary to make the movie.
I kind of thought.
Cool. What about you, Dax? Have you seen it?
I didn't see it, no. And in full disclosure, I had movie tickets, and then I got a COVID positive result. Didn't get to go out for the next 2 weeks with my friends. So they all went and saw it without me. But I heard like just great reviews. Everyone that saw it, I think, was so blown away by Robert Pattinson. And I think it's the same thing that Adam said, was like they expected one thing, or they've typecast him into a certain role because of previous film roles, that they didn't see him as a Batman. And then once they got there and watched the film, they were pleasantly surprised by his acting, by the role in general, by the movie itself as a whole. And I think he really, I guess, did a great justice for himself.
You know, it's interesting because that's exactly the way Michael Uslan was describing his personal thoughts when Tim Burton cast Michael Keaton as Batman in 1989. He's like, Mr. Mom is going to play Bruce Wayne and Batman. This doesn't make any sense. And it was the same type of thing for him. What were you getting ready to say, Adam?
No, I was going to say, there has been a Batman movie. There's only one Batman movie that I really couldn't get into. And I even like the George Clooney Batman, like that he even makes fun of himself for doing. I loved Michael Keaton. I loved The Dark Knight. Like, the only Batman I couldn't get into was, Ben Affleck Batman versus Superman. That was the only one that wasn't for me. But all the other Batmans, even Batman and Robin, I actually enjoyed.
That's fun.
I know that's maybe controversial, maybe, but to some. But
no, Ben Affleck is a controversial Batman. You either love him or hate him in the Batman fan world right now. Let's talk a little Spider-Man, because you guys, you're both Marvel fans, and Adam, you mentioned being a big Spider-Man fan. Who is your Spider-Man? We'll start with you, Dax. Is it Toby, Andrew, or Tom, and why?
Oh, Tom for sure.
Tom, really? Okay.
Yeah, no. It's not that I didn't like the other guys. Toby did a great job. Andrew Garfield did a great job. But I feel that Tom Holland has become my Spider-Man just because he was in the bigger of the Marvel movies, like Infinity War and Endgame, or made an appearances, whatever. But I just feel like he has now become Spider-Man to me. And so maybe it's just also because he's the most recent one, but I just think he knocks it out of the park. I think he's a great Spider-Man.
What about you, Adam?
I see Dax's point, and I like the way Tom Holland, again, because I deal with these people on the street, I like the way that Tom Holland plays the Spider-Man role outside the movie. I just like him as a person. I think he's a good guy. I think he's good to the fans. But I have to go, there hasn't been a bad Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield is fantastic. Tobey Maguire was amazing. But I have to give credit where credit's due, and I think Tobey Maguire set the tone for what Spider-Man is going to be. And I think, what kind of guy is going to be. So I think I got to go with the OG with Tobey Maguire, just because
You're wrong. You're wrong. It's Tom Holland.
Really?
But thank you for your opinion. I'm just kidding.
Well, you're both wrong. It's Andrew. So that's funny. What was that moment like for you guys? Did you guys both see that like opening weekend in the theaters? No Way Home.
I'm trying to think if I don't think I saw it opening weekend, but I definitely saw it pretty quickly for sure. I don't know.
What about you, Adam?
I love these movies.
Yeah, man. I didn't see it opening weekend, but it's funny. I was just in New York. It's about a few months ago. There is I'm walking to New York City and I see Tobey Maguire and he's walking around with a cup of coffee. And I was on my way to go to the gym, and there was a paparazzi that I knew who's a friend of mine because. I deal with a lot of paparazzi. He was the one, hey, listen, Tobey Maguire is coming up the street. And I was like, all right, get a photo of me standing next to him. So all of a sudden, Tobey Maguire is walking down with a cup of coffee. I come up next to him. I start talking to him like we're old friends. I'm like, hey, Tobey, how you doing? We start talking about like New York City, like direction, just random New York City stuff. And, Tobey Maguire's talking to me. We're walking down the street together just for literally like 7 seconds. But the paparazzi's taking the photos. And then he sends me the photos. And it looks like we're best friends. Like we're hanging out, walking around New York City together. It's just such a cool moment.
The coolest thing.
Looks like I'm friends with Tobey Maguire. And I think they even submitted it to the outlets saying like Tobey Maguire walking around with street journalist Adam Glyn in New York City, even though we don't know each other. I was just trying to get in the photo.
That's awesome. And do you have any of those crazy encounters that you could describe, Dax? Have you ever just randomly walked up to some celebrity on the street and had those conversations?
I mean, I've had a lot of conversations with some massive people. I'm trying to think of someone that would actually be relatable to your audience here, because I've had a lot of the Kim Kardashians, Paris Hilton run-ins,
Justin Bieber,
like just random pop
David
culture.
Spade. Tell me what happened to David Spade when you went to the restaurant.
Yeah, David Spade was pretty funny. Once I was at a restaurant out here in LA and was out with my wife, and we were getting dinner with someone, and we're in like the lounge area waiting to get seated. And I see this like head pop up and around the corner, make eye contact, and then like go back. I'm like, what the hell was that? and it keeps happening. And I realize it's David Spade, who recognized me from being on TMZ for a long time. And he was just playing around being a super goofball. And then finally came over and started talking. He's like, I love you. And like, I love the show. You guys are so funny. It was just a really fun encounter. But Marvel stars, I don't really have a big Marvel star that I can say I've had a fantastic encounter with, unfortunately.
Actually, it's funny, Dax. I have
you need to change that.
I know.
I have I guess a Marvel, not Marvel, more DC. I guess I have was Batman and Robin DC?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was DC, right? Okay, so
like that.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't know if it was such like a weird movie. I didn't know if somehow they made it Marvel somehow. I don't know, because I was just sort of like, it was such
Marvel
a commercial type movie.
I'm just going to be honest with you, everybody. You've lost all credibility with everybody listening to this podcast right now.
I just want to make sure. I wanted to make sure, because that movie to me was just so like bright. Remember all the colors in that movie? It was just such a bright movie. It's not the average DC dark movie or average DC. Anyway, Jim Carrey was in that movie. Jim Carrey, the Riddler. And Jim Carrey was at the Trump Soho in New York City. He was staying in the hotel. And also in the hotel was the Jonas Brothers. The Jonas Brothers were staying in the hotel. So there's a group of probably about like 12 girls waiting outside for the Jonas Brothers to come out. And I'm standing outside the door guy, and he's like, hey, Jim Carrey's about to come out. And this SUV, that black Escalade, standing right in front of the door. The fans are like sitting behind a rope waiting for the Jonas Brothers. And Jim Carrey comes out, and he goes, Jim Jonas, nice to meet you. And he runs in the car, and the girls are like, who is that guy? They didn't even know who Jim Carrey is. They were there for the Jonas Brothers. He's like, Jim Jonas, nice to meet you. And he runs in the car, and me and the door guy are cracking up, and he rolls down the window. He goes, and he looks to the girl fans, and there's no cameras running. He was just messing around. He goes, he rolls down the window very slowly. He goes, I'm the Jonas brother nobody talks about. And the window revolves all the way back up. And we were dying because the girls were so confused. But like, it was Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey, and it was just an amazing thing to see.
That's so funny.
That's hilarious. All right, so Dax, what's the craziest interview you've ever done?
craziest interview I've ever done, I think probably Tony Hawk. And the only reason that I say it was my craziest interview is because I went to his house to interview him, like in his domain, and he has this beautiful house. It's not quite down to San Diego. It's like Escondido area, and he has this big gigantic mansion that's up on the hillside overlooking the ocean. And you walk in and it's just like filled with all this memorabilia and cool art. And and the coolest thing about him is, so we showed up, like me and the camera crew showed up, and he was literally sitting in his driveway, like leaned up against the wall, waiting for us to get there, and so that he could open the gate for us to come in. And I'm like, Tony Hawk is sitting here waiting for us to show up to his house. So we get there, it lets us inside. We, kind of take a tour around the whole house. It's beautiful, very modern. And then we make it out to his backyard where he's got this pool, and beyond the pool is an empty pool because he's got his own skate park in his backyard. And again, his skate park is overlooking the ocean on top of a hill. It's super cool. I was never a skater growing up. I had never skateboarded. And Tony Hawk taught me how to skateboard in his backyard in his own skate park.
That's going to be hard to top, Adam.
That's probably my number one celebrity interview, just because it was pretty awesome.
That is pretty awesome.
Beat that, Adam.
I mean, I started the Conor McGregor Floyd Mayweather fight, on the streets by interviewing Floyd Mayweather a few days after Conor McGregor beat at UFC 205. So here's what happened. UFC 205 is in New York. Conor McGregor wins in very quick. And bottom line, all of a sudden, Conor McGregor became the poster boy for the UFC. Like, oh my God, this guy's a star. Sunday, everyone talks about Conor. Monday, everyone talks about Conor. Tuesday, Floyd Mayweather is shopping in the Diamond District in New York City. So I go up to Floyd. I go, hey, Floyd, let's talk about Conor McGregor. He gives me a wink. He goes, let's go. I asked him, I go, hey, what did you think about the Conor McGregor fight? And Floyd Mayweather says, never compare an elephant to an ant. He's never done the things I've done. Don't even bring him up, pretty much. And basically trashes Conor McGregor for 5 minutes. And just like that, the video becomes viral. All of a sudden, he takes the wind from Conor McGregor. The next day, I knew Conor McGregor was still in New York. So I ran to get Conor McGregor, and I go, hey, Conor, Floyd said this, and never compare an elephant to an ant. He says, this, that you haven't done the things he has. Conor McGregor says, do you believe him? He says, tell him to say it to my face. So all of a sudden, this gets the internet talking. Are these two actually going to fight? The next day, I get Floyd Mayweather again talking trash about Conor McGregor. The next day, I get Dana White talking trash about Floyd Mayweather, which got the internet talking, which created the biggest fight in fight history, Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. Right. So I made these guys a lot of money, and all I got was a souvenir T-shirt. I got a souvenir T-shirt. that might have been the biggest one because what it ended up being. But I mean, I've interviewed Oprah, I've interviewed The Rock, I've interviewed, some pretty cool people. I mean, yeah, right. Cardi B and her tour bus. Cardi B and her tour bus. That was kind of fun. I got to sit down and have coffee with John Cena. That was really fun for me.
Don't forget we interviewed O-Town a couple months ago.
They don't even know O-Town. Yeah.
Nobody listening to this podcast will admit that they know who that is. Okay. That's pretty cool. All right. So who's the coolest celebrity in Hollywood, and why is it Mark Hamill? No, I'm the last part you can take off. But anyway, based on your fun interactions with these crazy people, here's what'll set that story up. So we were at it was last December on a whim. My two sons and I got an airplane. We flew to California and we crashed the red carpet for Spider-Man No Way Home. Well, we tried. We didn't get in, obviously. You never do. But anyway, we had a great time. We were hanging out outside, and Benedict Cumberbatch makes this this trek as he gets out of his limo, this trek all the way down the fans that are lined up outside, and starts acknowledging them and bowing to them and like hanging out with us and all of those kinds of things. And for my son, who is a massive Benedict Cumberbatch Doctor Strange fan, this was like one of the coolest moments he's ever been, when literally Benedict Cumberbatch bowed to him directly in front of that because of things. So for us, Benedict Cumberbatch is a pretty cool celebrity. Who's the coolest celebrity in Hollywood in your opinion? I'll let you guys take it from there, and we'll end with that.
Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal. He's a superhuman person. He's the greatest person, one of the greatest people in his time of celebrity. He's unbelievable how he treats people, the way he runs, the way he operates, the way he makes people feel. He is a real life superhero. I've never seen someone who's so genuine about what he does. It's not forced. It's just who he is. I don't think people even realize half the stuff that he does, like that you see in the news where he buys someone an engagement ring or buys someone a laptop or buys a school pair of sneakers or something like that. Like that's only like he doesn't even, it's just who he is. It's just what type of person. He's unbelievable.
I'm going to go with Keanu Reeves. I love Keanu Reeves. I think that this guy, what I like about Keanu is he does a lot of the same things that Shaq does, like giving back to people or doing good deeds for people that are working on his movie set, but doesn't want any recognition for it. Like, there's no articles that come out, but you hear the stories about Keanu, like gifting people Rolexes that he has worked with just as a way to say thank you. Like I think it was his stunt crew. There was like 7 guys on his stunt crew, bought all of them Rolex watches for being his stuntman in John Wick movies, just as like a, hey, thanks for being awesome. Thanks for helping me, do well. I know that he's given a lot of money back to charities and foundations. And to me, Keanu Reeves is just like the epitome of like the coolest guy in Hollywood. And the internet loves him, by the way. And, he's down to earth and fun. And I love Keanu.
I'm not sure if you picked up on this just listening to the interview with Adam and Dax, but I want you to take this away from our conversation. These guys have met a ton of celebrities. They've interviewed some of the biggest names in Hollywood and entertainment. But when they describe the coolest celebrities in Hollywood, they don't talk about anyone who is funny or charming or rich or throws the biggest parties. They talked about 2 people who give more than they receive. Success is more than fame and fortune, and it reminds me of the ending to the movie It's a Wonderful Life. George is gathered by like well over 100 people who have come to his house, and they're there to provide that aid in his moment of crisis. And he finds a copy of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer sitting there in front of him, obviously from the angel in the end of the movie. When he opens it, it's inscribed by Clarence, and it says, "Remember, George, no man is a failure who has friends." It's men like Shaquille O'Neal and Keanu Reeves and so many of you that give of yourselves every single day, who really are the coolest people and the most successful. I want to thank Adam and Dax for joining me this week on Tatooine Sons. Check out everything these guys have going on by visiting HollywoodRaw.com. And thank you for listening to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast. If you enjoyed our conversation, please take a moment to rate and review this show on your podcast app of choice. Make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button on your app so you get every episode the moment it drops. Our next episode releases on Tuesday. We've got we're going to have some really crazy conversation about that ending to Moon Knight episode 4. I don't know if I have any clue what actually happened there. Anyway, and we'll hopefully have some time this weekend to catch up on Halo. That is the plan, because Mom's going out of town, so hopefully we'll have time to do that. And the marketing machine for Obi-Wan Kenobi is starting to heat up. I don't know if you saw that that ad that has Obi-Wan and Vader battling each other. Anyway, we're probably going to have a lot more fun things to discuss there as well. Make sure you follow the show so you don't miss an episode. While you're at it, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that. Share this episode with somebody else. That's how you help the show grow. I think that is going to do it for today. There's only one thing left to say.
May the force be with you always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Join, please.
Yep.